Hi guys, thanks so much for tuning into this video. I am Jay Theo, and today we're going to be talking about my thoughts on gay interracial dating in three buckets: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I've been wanting to talk about this topic for a while now, and a few people have commented and requesting this video, so I decided why not. I also just have my own genuine thoughts about dating outside of our race and dating interracially, especially as a black gay man. So I feel like why not talk about it, especially since racism continues to be such an issue in our country and such an issue when it comes to dating in the gay world. So this video is going to be broken up into three different buckets: the good, the bad, the ugly. I am going to talk about first the good, which is going to be more on what are some positives or just some pros to dating outside of your race, or just some things that are not bad about dating outside your race. At the end of the day, I do think love is love, and I think we all have our own individual love journeys. I definitely don't want to make a video just bashing interracial love. Like I said, this whole video is going to be based on the perspective of me, which is a gay black man, my experiences, people I've known that dated interracially, family that I've known that have dated interracially, and all the above. So this is all gonna be based on my experiences. So be sure to comment, let me know your experience, if you agree with some thoughts, if you disagree. Open to conversation, but with positivity. Let's have real positive conversations. I don't want us bashing races. I don't want my comments getting crazy racism comments. I want us to have conversations, and let's think about certain things when it comes to dating in and outside of our races. Okay, guys? So let's go ahead and discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to dating interracially as a gay black man. So first off, the good. So I'm gonna be talking about a few topics within this bucket. And the first thing I wanna talk about within this bucket is just overall new experiences. So like I said, love is love. So dating outside of your race, black, brown, Asian, whoever you are, dating outside your race still allows you to grasp on new experiences. So I definitely have had positive experiences when I've gone on dates with people outside of my race, where I've experienced something new. They explained something new to me I never thought of. They told me about potential dates or going places I've never even thought to go, or dates I've never even thought to go on. So I definitely think there's something really cool about when you are dating outside your race, how you can experience new experiences and get to know a new culture that you don't know about. So I think that's one great plus about dating outside your race, is the experiences you can have that are new and exciting and unique from an experience you would have with dating monoracially within your own race. Also think, being that I am a black gay man and I was raised in the church and I was raised a very particular way within the black community, and the black community unfortunately tends to be a little bit closed-minded when it comes to certain things. So I think one plus dating outside of your race is just open-mindedness. I will say the times I've dated white men or hooked up with white men, even just from a sexual standpoint, they tend to be more open-minded and more willing to try new things and try different things that I feel like sometimes black men are not as open to trying. I mean, even my first few experiences with sex toys and things like that were some experiences I had with white men versus some of the experience I've had with black men. Now, I'm not saying that there are no black men that are not open to these things, but I'm just saying that I have had new experiences, different levels of open-mindedness when I have hooked up and dated outside of my race. I've experienced some new things, and sexually, you know, my experience, white men and other races tend to be a little more open-minded sometimes, especially when it comes to like leather parties and gear and any type of fetish or kink type of thing. White men tend to be a little bit more open-minded, so that can be a plus dating outside your race if you're looking for a little bit more of that kind of open-mindedness when it comes to different things. So I also think open-mindedness in the sense of just trying new things out in the world, I think can also be a plus from dating outside of your race. And this is not just white men. These could come from dating any other race outside of your race. Could be a different level of open-mindedness or just newness that you're not used to, which could be exciting when you are dating somebody. Also, there have been studies, I actually wrote a paper about this in college, about homophobia within different racial groups, and white people tend to be less homophobic as a whole culturally than black and brown communities. So sometimes dating a white man, you will deal with a little bit less homophobia. You know, their families may be a little bit less homophobic, and also they may be a little less internally homophobic themselves. Now, this isn't to say that white men are not homophobic. I have met homophobic white men. I have seen internally homophobic men. I've also known white men who didn't come out until they were like almost in their 40s or 50s. So I think there's definitely still homophobia, internal homophobia that happens in white world and other races outside of blackness. But I do think that as a culture, Black and brown communities and Asian communities tend to be a little bit more harder on homophobia, and that's just based on slavery and everything we went through, and then our church, our connection to the church and things like that. So there are some benefits, or I won't say benefits, but there are some positives from dating somebody outside your race when it comes to homophobia. It could be a little less rigorous, a little less intense, and even just internally they may have a little bit less homophobia, just because studies show that culturally Black and brown communities tend to be a little bit heavier on the homophobia, especially in this day and age that we are in right now. And then to end it all off, socioeconomically, dating outside your race, particularly yet again dating white men, there could be an advantage socioeconomically. Now, I don't date for those reasons, but I did have a friend who one of the reasons why he loved to date white men is because socioeconomically they tend to have a little bit more money, specifically the type of white men he would date. So I definitely, and at the end of the day, Black men, we are one of the lowest educated and we have one of the lowest wealths in the country. So I definitely think if you are looking for a little bit more financial differences socioeconomically, there could be some benefits to dating outside of your race. Now that sounds very gold diggery, but I'm just putting it out there. The realities of, I know some people that are Black and brown that date white men because of the socioeconomic gain they feel that they are having. Now I'm gonna talk about that a little later in the video, some of the ugly that can come with that, but at the end of the day, that is still something that could be a good benefit to dating outside of your race if you are looking for someone to kind of financially take on more of the financial piece of the relationship. I think that's a little bit more attainable if you date outside of your race, but I definitely think all races make money, all races have wealth, all races can provide a great financial dynamic, and I don't think that's a reason you should be just dating outside of your race, but I know that is a reason that some people do date outside of their race. Also, if you are more open to dating outside of your race, that increases your pool of potential of dating by millions of people. If you're more open to dating white, Latinx, Asian, Black, whatever, you're obviously gonna have a bigger pool of people to date. So something to keep in mind as well. Okay, so now to get into the bad. So I want to talk about some of the things, the bad, that I think could happen when you are dating interracially, but these are more things, everybody, that I think you should just think about in conversations you should have with your partner or potential partner when you are dating outside of your race. And this comes from both sides. Obviously, I'm going to be on the Black side of bias on how I feel about these different topics, but I definitely think these dynamics can go both ways when you are dating outside your race, if you're white, Black, Latinx, Asian, etc. So first we're going to start off with family dynamics. This is one that I think could go really bad if you don't have really great discussions discussing what the family dynamics will be when it comes to dating outside of your race. Some parents and some families do not like their family members dating outside of the race. So I think your partner needs to know that that's a dynamic they're gonna have to face. And then if you're that partner, you're gonna have to face that. If your partner's family are racist and they don't know how to deal with someone within your race, you're going to have to deal with that. As a Black person, you are not only going to get this from white people, I've also heard this from Latinx people and Asian people that their family members are not even open to them dating Black. They are only open to them dating Latinx, or only open to them dating Asian or white. Usually white is always okay. But for the most part, I've been told many times, I even have Latinx friends that tell me their family members say the N-word and say really derogatory terms about Black people. So I think family dynamic is something that you really have to consider if you are dating outside of your race. I've been on dates with white guys before. They tell me their parents are Trump supporters, their parents are not big fans of them dating outside their race. So these are actual conversations I've had. And I think these are just something you need to think about, a conversation you need to have with your person if you're gonna have to deal with those family dynamics, because that could become really stressful really quickly, especially if you need to contact their family if your partner is sick or there's something going on and you need to be in contact with the family or deal with the family, or you're going to barbecues or you're going to events with the family and they secretly do not like you because of your race. That is not gonna feel good for you, and that's a conversation you need to have with your partner. Also, microaggressions. Microaggressions happen. If you are dating outside of your race, microaggressions are gonna happen, and microaggressions, they can build up and be really annoying. I mean, they happen to us at work, they happen to us, when we're out and about, but having that in an intimate relationship could become frustrating. I recently was hooking up with a white guy and he kept calling my locks braids. I had to keep correcting him. He wanted to put his hands in my hair. I told him that it don't really work like that with locks. You're gonna make my hair fuzzy. So those are little small microaggressions, but if he didn't listen, if he continued to do those things and didn't listen to me, that could build resentment if me and him were dating. And the list could go on and on and on about microaggressions. We know what microaggressions microaggressions are, and you just have to make sure that you have those conversations. Is your partner gonna be willing to understand when microaggressions need to stop? Can you guys have conversations about microaggressions? And are they really an advocate for your race to want to understand and make sure that you feel comfortable? You want to make sure if you are dating outside your race that you're dating somebody who's an advocate of your race, that wants to make you feel comfortable, wants to make you feel good, and thinks that your race deserves all the respect that their race deserves. So definitely think microaggressions is something you have to think about that could go bad, but just something that you have to have a conversation about with your partner. Next up is fetishism. I'm not gonna take too much time on fetishism, but this is something you definitely need to have a conversation with when it comes to your partner, because you never know when you're being fetishized, especially being black, brown, or Asian. There's a lot of fetishism that comes with that, but also you could be a black, brown, or Asian person and fetishize a white person. So I definitely think there's conversations that need to be had when it comes to fetishism. Nobody wants to be fetishized. I think there's always going to be small levels of that, depending if your partner does find you just so beautiful, or they think your skin is so gorgeous. There may be levels of fetishism, but I think but I also think there's certain levels that can become toxic and become crazy. So I definitely think you need to have those conversations about fetishism and make it very clear that you are not okay with fetishism, and understand the dynamics and conversations that need to be had with your partner that eliminates as much fetishism as possible. I had a friend who had to break up with his boyfriend because his partner found out was fetishizing him. He found some text messages, he found some insight that made it realize that his partner was fetishizing him, and that's just not okay. But I've talked about fetishism in my other videos. Go back and watch some of my challenges dating as a black gay man, and you can see a little bit more of me talk about fetishism. But fetishism is something you're gonna have conversations about if you are dating outside of your race. Savior complexes. So this is something that happens a lot when people date white people. There's like a white savior complex, white guilt, where people feel like they need to save someone or help someone come out, all these things. It is not your job to save your partner. It is your job to support and be there for your partner. And I think that's something that as white people, conversation as a black or brown or Asian person, you need to have with your partner. Now, if you are having difficulty coming out to your family, if you're having difficulty, dealing with homophobia with your family, your white partner needs to understand that that's something you need to work through. That's something that they can support you on. They are not there to save you. They are not there to spearhead conversations. They are there to be a support system for you. Now, if your family's open to it and your partner can be really helpful in that capacity, great. But your partner needs to understand that they're not your savior, they're your partner, they're your support system. And I think just having those conversations are great ways to make sure you and your partner are on the same page. So I think as a white person, as a black or brown or Hispanic or Latin person, Asian person, have those conversations with your partner. Let them know, I'm not trying to be saved. I appreciate your help. I think a good example of this is that show, Love, Simon. I really feel like at one point his boyfriend was really trying to be a savior and really trying to push him to come out, and I don't think that's okay. You should genuinely be dating your person because you genuinely love them, not because you see them as a project to get them out of a bad situation or to save them from the hood or save them from themselves. You should genuinely be dating them because you love them and you want to be with them. And I think this is still just a conversation that needs to be had if you feel like that dynamic is happening at all. And I think these are just great conversations to have if you guys are interracial, and just to make sure that you guys won't have these issues in the future. I think these are great conversations to have with your partner. And if your partner really is open to your race, they will be able to have these conversations with you. Also, constant education. So one bad thing I can feel like come out of an interracial relationship that is a conversation you and your partner should have. When I say bad thing, a conversation you guys should have is a constant education. So if separate cultures, different cultures, you're gonna constantly have to educate. I feel like this is more of a burden usually on the black or brown or Asian person, because we are the minority. We are not the beauty standard. We are not mainstream society. So a lot of the time the burden is having to educate on black and brown and Asian issues falls on that person. Now you have to be okay with that dynamic, and that's a conversation you need to have with your partner. And also as the white partner or the white passing partner, or the person that just doesn't understand these dynamics, even if it is two minorities dating each other like black and Asian, whatever, you guys both have to be open to understanding and learning these dynamics and be open to the education. But know that there can be some burden, there could be a little bit of burden educating your partner on microaggressions, educating your partner on racial dynamics, educating partners on your cultural dynamics, educating your partner on your family dynamics. That could all be a lot of educating and consistency that you guys have to keep up. But in all relationships, you have to learn each other, you have to have conversations, so I don't think it's impossible. But I think this is something that should be conscious, something that you guys should talk about and really bring up that, we are gonna have to be educating each other, and let's talk about it, make sure that we have the communication, to make sure that we have the right verbiage and the right words to make sure everybody's feeling comfortable when we are educating and not making anybody feel like you're being condescending or you're talking down to anybody when you are educating them on specific cultural aspects of your race, of your family, of your world, that makes them better understand you and shows that they really truly understand you. So I think that's another conversation that needs to be had. Lastly, I think, one thing I want to talk about when it comes to power dynamics, and I want to kind of bring back the financial gain as another layer of this. I have met, especially living in California and just living in New York, I have met a lot of gay relationships that are interracial where the white man is making way more money than the black, brown, or Asian person. And there's usually an age dynamic. There's usually a pretty big age dynamic that I've witnessed. I just think you guys have to be careful with power dynamics when it comes to finances in a relationship, and understand that as sometimes white people, when they know they have the financial power, they can start treating you in such a way. And I think that's when sometimes in gay relationships we start to imitate gender roles because of the power dynamics. Now, hey, if you guys have certain financial power dynamics in a relationship, I think that's fine, but I think there needs to be conversations that are had. If you are a black or brown person and you are kind of on the lower level of the power dynamic, I don't know what those conversations look like, but there needs to be a level of respect, there needs to be a level of partnership that is discussed, and it needs to be understood that you guys are still in a relationship. Nobody's anybody's daddy, nobody's anybody's authority. You guys are in a relationship, and I think those are conversations that needs to be had in any power dynamic, any when it comes to finances. But I definitely have seen it pretty common where a white man has the financial gain over a black, brown, or Asian person, and there's usually a little bit of an age dynamic there as well. So the power dynamics can get a little specific from an age authority perspective and a racial perspective and just a financial perspective. So just make sure you're having those conversations. I think all love is love. I think age is nothing but a number. If you want that dynamic, that is perfectly fine. But make sure you guys are having that conversation and make sure you guys are feeling comfortable with the power dynamics and there's not resentment building up due to those power dynamics. Okay, so next up is the ugly. And these are to me some of the worst things that can happen when dating interracially as a gay person. And I really want us to be conscious of this dynamic. And these are conversations you have to have, guys. If you guys are dating outside of your race, make sure you guys are having these conversations within this ugly bucket. So the first thing I want to talk about is events that can happen during domestic violence. Now, I know none of us want to be in a relationship where domestic violence is a thing, but let's keep it real. Domestic violence in same-sex relationships is a huge thing. It happens a lot. And you guys need to discuss, if you are in an interracial relationship, what are some things that can happen if domestic violence happens? Are we gonna call the police? What's gonna happen? Are we gonna try to keep our cool? Because we all know if a white person or a more white-facing person calls the police on a black or brown person, that can go really bad. And even if a black or brown person, you call the police, things can still end very fatal for you. So I think there needs to be conversation on, if we have a domestic dispute, if we have domestic violence going on, what are gonna be some of the tools we use to make sure we de-escalate the situation so nobody dies, and how do we avoid calling the police? I actually had a friend whose boyfriend was white, put a knife on him, they got in a dispute, and he had to pin his boyfriend down and make sure that he did not call the police on him because he did not want to potentially die. So these are things you have to think about when you are dating outside of your race, or what are the dynamics gonna be if we have a domestic violence situation where white privilege can be used. And that kind of goes into my next topic under ugly. How is white privilege gonna be used if you are dating somebody white and you are a black or brown person? You guys need to have conversations about white privilege, what that looks like, and how they cannot use that to be combative, or they cannot use that to their advantage when you guys are having a rough patch or you guys are having issues in your relationship. That is not okay. These are conversations that need to be had if your partner really loves you. And I know white privilege isn't always conscious, but they cannot use their white privilege to be combative or to gain or to be disrespectful when you guys are having disputes. So I also think there needs to be a conversation about privilege within your relationship. And this goes on to my next topic, especially when you are raising kids. I myself have no desire to have kids, but I know there are interracial relationships where people want kids and they will have mixed kids or they will adopt certain kids. So I think there needs to be conversation of what kind of kids are you guys gonna adopt? What kind of kids are you guys looking to actually produce yourselves? And if so, if we have mixed children, will we see those mixed kids as black? Will we see those mixed kids as just mixed? What kind of dynamics will we have about race? And unfortunately, a lot of white people are not set up to be able to have those conversations about race. So I think as a black, brown, or Asian person, you guys need to bring in those conversations and make sure you're having those. You want a partner who understands your racial dynamic and understands the racial intelligence you want to instill in your kids. So I definitely think there needs to be a conversation about race when it comes to raising kids, if that's something you guys want to do, especially in these black, brown, Asian and white relationships, even across relationships where it's black, brown, intermixing, you know, minorities dating each other. I still think those conversations need to be had because, as I said, certain family dynamics and certain families do not see race the same, and certain families still see other races on lower on the totem pole, even with minority communities. We all know Asian community, Latinx community, a lot of them feel the same way about blackness that you know, white people do. And then also there's a lot of black people that also look down on other races as well. So I definitely think those are conversations we need to have when you guys are having kids. This is something that can get really, really ugly, and I've witnessed it. I've had friends and I've had family that have mixed kids, and the conversations get real nasty when it's talking about what race the kid is and how they should speak to the kid about race. So I think that's something that's really should be a piece of the pie when you are dating outside of your race. One big thing I think that happens, and this is just even with straight people that date outside of their race, is when people date outside of their race, and I'm speaking this from a black perspective, that people decide to kind of eliminate their blackness or eliminate the culture that they're from. I know I've met a lot of gay black people, I've met straight black men that once they date outside their race, particularly when they date a white person, they are so quick to dismiss their blackness, dismiss their black friends, dismiss their black roots, and even dismiss their black family. So I definitely think that this is something that could get real ugly when people are dating outside of this race. If you are a black person, you are still black. If you're a Latinx, you're still Latinx. If you're Asian, you're still Asian. If you're white, you're still white. You still need to respect who you are as a person and not eliminate that side of you just so that you can please this other race. You still owe it to yourself as your identity and to your race and your family to be who you are. And I think that will make for more of a genuine relationship. So all that to say, I definitely think there's some good, there's some bad, and there's some ugly that comes to interracial dating. I think the gay dating scene particularly is a very racist dating scene, and I think black, brown, and Asian folks, we have to really be careful who we are dating and how we're dating and the conversations we are having amongst each other, and also when we are dating white people, what that looks like. And I think we all have a lot to learn from each other. I all think it takes a lot of work on both sides, but I definitely think there's certain dynamics within the gay community that we need to make sure we are focused on to make sure that we are having successful relationships, no matter if we are dating monoracially, interracially, or whatever. So guys, thanks so much for tuning into this video. I hope you found it insightful. Please be sure to leave comments and let me know your experience. If you guys have dated outside of your race, if you're open to dating outside of your race, if you only date within your race, what are your reasonings? What are your experiences? Let me know everything. But keep in mind, please, any negative comments, any racist comments will get deleted. I want this to be a dynamic conversation, and I want us to start having more real conversations about what it means to date outside of your race and how can we make these relationships healthy, nurturing, and all of the above. I myself, just to let you guys know a little bit of insight on how I move in these when it comes to interracially dating. So I still am in the pursuit of a monoracial relationship with a black person. I am open. I go on dates with all types of people. I hook up with all kinds of races. I am open to meeting someone outside of my race, but I diligently pursue men that are black just because I do think it's a little bit easier dynamic. I have been a little traumatized by some of the stories about domestic violence that happens when people call the police and things like that when you are dating somebody outside of your race. So things like that traumatize me a bit to where I'm not as open to dating outside of my race, but I'm still open. But right now, my main goal still is to find something monoracially, but I think love is love. I think everybody should be able to date whoever they want to. And at the end of the day, if my partner happens to not be black, I am okay with that. But I also understand the conversations and the dynamics and the things that need to be had if I'm going to be dating outside of my race. I'm going to have these conversations with my partner if I ever date outside of my race. And I really, really, really want to push anybody who dates outside their race, straight, gay, up, down, whatever, to have these dynamic conversations and make sure that you guys are on the same page about all the different aspects that can happen when you date outside of your race. Unfortunately, race is a big issue in humanity. It's a big issue in America, and I think we could save ourselves a lot of bullshit. We have these conversations early on when we are getting to know and dating someone. So at the end of the day, y'all, you know, we're about to be on the onset of June, so happy Pride as we get into June. I definitely think, so guys, I actually think when this video posts, it will probably be like the first day of June. So I just want to say we are gonna happy Pride to everyone. Love is love. I think all love is amazing love, but keep in mind that there are certain things you have to think about, nuances you have to think about when you are dating outside of your race. So as always, guys, as we start Pride Month, be sure to do your best to stay safe, stay positive, and I will see you guys on the next video.